I come from the land of tigers, right in central India. Unfortunately, just 2 weeks ago, we lost one of our safari drivers there. He was killed in his own field in the morning by a tiger when he was there to help his father. This is the map where I work, and that's the area which I love, where I've been working with my husband. It's called Tadoba, Andhari Tiger Reserve, one of the places where we work. And so not long ago, in 1995, when I decided that we should spend more time following our passion. So I moved from my profession of interior designing and moved to follow my heart to protect tigers and the forest for the next generations to come. And it's been a beautiful journey. Tadoba, when I went there, was a little baby, and we've helped cradle it and nurture it to where it is. It's one of the best homes for tigers today, with more than 300, 350 tigers there. But as I tell you my story, and I'm also going to tell you a story of this tigress with her 4 cubs, and how they moved as we did, addressing the challenges and the love of the forest that the tiger and we share. It's been 30 years now. We've lived in the forest. We used to live in a small hut in the forest. That's where I used to also take our son, and walked in the forest, bitten by ticks, bitten by a tiger cub, volunteered, I don't know how sensible that was, but volunteered to get tasered just to experience what animals would feel like if we tasered them. Mistakenly sprayed pepper spray on ourselves and slept on machans, on treetops. So it's been a beautiful journey. And through this, we helped the state government address multiple problems. So injured tigers, capturing leopards, so-called problem animals, the man-eaters and stuff. So through this first decade of our time there, it was a beautiful time where we patrolled, we did anti-poaching, we trained the forest staff, we did research, we conducted, we understood where the park was headed and what it was supposed to be. But 2008 came, and then came a turning point in the entire scenario of the park and a twist in our lives. 2008, while we were far away from Tadoba, almost 100 kilometers away, walking one of the forests, when we, over the next 3 months, we found 3 families of abandoned tiger cubs there. It was heartbreaking to see them. One family was barely 3 months old, 3 cubs, 2 cubs, 7 months, and 2 cubs, 9 months. And this was a turning point when we had to get those tiger cubs, rescue them, and get them away from the wild into the zoo. It was heartbreaking to bring a wild animal into captivity, but there was no choice. And this was also the time when suddenly the tiger numbers, because of the protection and the conservation efforts of the state and the NGOs, rose from barely 17. There were 17 tigers in 2002. And they came to be more than 100. And if you see this is the landscape, a little part of the landscape. The small villages where people live, and they live by the side of the tigers. These villages are unfenced, the forest is unfenced. And people started sharing natural resources with the animals, the large predators. So 2008 was also monumental, because that was a time when our landscape, the Chandrapur district, experienced 40 attacks by tigers and leopards on people. And it was so disturbing to see more than half of them fatal. And if you see that map, that's the study that we've done. We've visited those dots on the map. We visited every spot, met the victim's family or the victim if he was injured, understood the reason for conflict. Why were attacks happening? And the government was baffled. So they reached out to us and they said, can you help us? You're familiar with this landscape. Can you find solutions here? how do we secure animals and secure people? And that was the condition then when we did not have equipment. The injured were taken in bullock carts. I mean, it was really, really bad. And this is the level of coexistence that happened. If you see people were having pug marks, that's a pug mark where there's a circle drawn. And people were having tigers and leopards almost in their backyard. What was happening? So when we understood this, it wasn't just the people who were suffering. People were sharing space, their fields, with large carnivores. It's easy to talk about it here, but if you have your own child going to school on those forest trails where there are animals, you would not want to be there. And the animals also were suffering. This is a very, very unfortunate picture where the animal was in the village, found himself in the village because of strange circumstances. And tigers and leopards also had a challenging time because people were encroaching into their area. And because their numbers, tiger numbers were also increasing, they needed space to go. Tigers always disperse. Each tiger has its own range, and they disperse outside looking for mate and looking for food. And when they stepped outside, well, there was fragmentation, there were mines, there were road widening, there was all kinds of threats. There were poaching, there was fire, you name it, and they were struggling. So, having said this, it was a poignant time in our lives when I said, people are suffering, animals are struggling. Can I just get into my car and walk back? Can I just drive back to the safety of my urban home? I could have just driven away. But I think that is the time when we said, no, let's do something. This is our landscape. It was my backyard. I live in Nagpur, and this was barely 2 hours away. And this is the place which I thought I had adopted to make sure that my grandchildren and their children see tigers forever here. So I said, let's do something. Let's find solutions. So we looked at the data. We went to the forest. We understood. Meanwhile, while this was happening, we were addressing problem animals. There were leopards that were caged. There were tigers that were captured. There were injured tigers. There were injured people. Conflict rose to more than 500 attacks. Can you imagine today in the world of Netflix and internet, there are people somewhere very close to your homes who are dying, getting killed by large carnivores. It's unthinkable. So I said, why don't we address this at a larger level? Why don't we reach out to the state and say, bring in policy that can address this? You can't wait for this to happen by itself. So there's some of the reasons why conflict was happening. The main 2 reasons out of our data set was that people were going into the forest to get firewood because they did not have cooking gas. They did not have means for livelihood. So the dependence on the forest produce was very high. And there were no toilets. They were also using the fringe of the fields and the villages for open defecation. There were lots of other reasons. Animals were coming close by. They were coming closer. As they were dispersing outside the protected area, they would go close to villages looking for cattle or other prey. So there was a lot of overlap of area where animals and people were sharing natural resources. And I said, let's reach out to the government, tell them this is the problem, this is the solution, why can't we do this, and we'll help you do it. So we conceptualized and we designed a scheme which today is one of the largest schemes of Maharashtra Forest Department. It covers more than 1,100 villages. It has impacted 1 million individuals. We got them cooking gas, state-sponsored, subsidized cooking gas and the cylinders, and we also got them toilets. And it was a task to get people to use the toilets and not go out in the open. It took years because to change behavior takes time, but it did happen. And today, Maharashtra, 6 tiger reserves along the periphery. It has improved hygiene, it has reduced waterborne diseases, and it has also, on the other hand, as people stopped going into the forest for firewood, it has also brought the forest back. Then we said, this is done. This is something that the state did for the local people. Why don't the local people do something to help themselves? Why can't we reduce their vulnerability, bring local leadership, and bring them capacity so that they can mitigate conflict at their own level? So if you go and tell people, this is what you have to do, this is what you don't have to do, they don't listen. But when you do a training for trainers, when you bring them capacity to train their own people, it works at a larger level. So this is the second thing that we did. We brought first responders for mitigation. And today, I mean, I'm really happy that we have more than 350 villages which are conflict affected, which have all these first responders. There are 5 to 7 individuals which we train in every village, and then they work in tandem with the government. They understand how to address conflict. When a leopard falls in the well, when there's a leopard in somebody's kitchen, when there's a tiger in near the school, what are they supposed to do? So we train them, and it's a continuous hand-holding. 2,000 people, and now this massive army of 2,000 trained people, youth, they get a bursary from the forest department, but they now secure more than 250,000 of individuals that live in their community. They are the leaders. They secure themselves and their community. So these first responders are called primary response teams, PRTs, and they are one of our biggest strengths. So the next question was, conservation is always about looking at solutions as the problems keep cropping up. So I said, how do you bring all these people together? How do you convey a message to them together? And it was simple. We just created WhatsApp groups, and we brought them together on these groups. And then the government went a step forward, and they said, all right, let's bring technology here. So now a number of villages around Tadoba, maybe 40 now, and they're going to take it forward, has AI cameras installed around the periphery, which work 24/7. And they give out alerts like this they put out these alerts in our WhatsApp group. And immediately the first responders of that village are told, hello, there's a tiger near your school in your village. So pictures like this come on, even at night or day. And then that team alerts the community and says, children have to now go back to school, let them not come out, or they have to be escorted back. Women should not be in the field because there's a tiger nearby. So it has helped. So going back to the story of the 4 tiger cubs and their mother, they were growing in Tadoba. The 4 tiger cubs grew up, and they had to move. They had to look for homes for themselves. One of the guys grew up, and he became the king of Tadoba. There he is, right in the middle, in his own meadow, with a lot of food to eat. But the other guy, one of the brothers, did not find space, and he moved out looking for another home for himself. And that's where he is in the picture on the left. He is close to a village, turned out to be a problem animal. We don't call them man-eaters. They are problem animals because they tend to lose fear of people as they go closer, and they are weaned off on fringes by the mother, and then they lose fear of people and they go closer to human dwellings. And they get into negative conflict or negative interface with people, as people also continue their movement in the forest. So they're 2 siblings from the same family, one very protected, and the other one is in conflict with people. So it's important to understand when Tadoba or a place like that is rewilded. You can always have animals and forests coming back. The earth comes back if we move back, and if you put proper interventions, it'll be rewilded, animals come back. But this planning has to be more comprehensive. You need to know what next. When you have lots of tigers, where are they going? Can you have proper mitigation in place? So the state policies have to look at all aspects of pre, during, and post. You have to have long-term plan as to what happens when you have lots of animals. Where are they going? Are we fragmenting the dispersing corridors when they move from one place to the other looking for homes? Have we mined the entire corridor that they'll use? Corridors are small forested patches or fields from where they walk from one place to the other looking for mates. Have we broken these corridors with road widenings or lines, any kind of linear threats? It could be canals, it could be irrigation. It could also be people taking away the forest. So it has to be comprehensive. Your plan for any kind of program that you do has to be more extensive and comprehensive. And the second is that the local people are the most important stakeholder. When you go for a safari, your driver and your the vehicle drug guide is the most important stakeholder in all that. The animals are there because of them. They're not destroying the forest. They're not taking away the animals. And it has to be appreciated that the community's resilience to coexistence, which probably I would not have or you would not have, is remarkable. The way they coexist in spite of losing cattle or losing, or having the threat of losing a family member is really, really remarkable. And we need to give back to them for them having protected our forest and the animals that we love so much. But one animal, one tiger cub lived inside, the other one moved out. He's a problem animal. And there are ways to deal with problem animals, whether they have to be taken away or shifted elsewhere. And at this point, very often, the emotion-laden sentiments of people who are situated far away, that often clashes with the science-driven decisions that the forest department or the forest managers take. And that decision, when there's a clash between the online activists and what the department has to do when an animal has to be removed, that can cause a threat to the animal and the people there. So we need to be very, very sensitive when we speak about the decisions that the management takes. And I think the most important thing is, the landscape is large. We are looking at a number of animals. We want more on-ground staff, on-ground support, more volunteers on ground than online activists. So it's a huge scope. Each of you can do your thing. Do it in your own backyard. You can do with little bees, you can do with a little lake or pond that you adopt and say, this is mine, and I want my grandchildren to experience this lake like I saw it with my parents. So I think each one of us can do our bit.